So, sir, we are just grateful for you being here. Now, for folks who may have missed your first interview on this show, can you just give us a recap as to this phenomenal machine you are the inventor, patent holder for, that is literally helping to provide water in spaces that most desperately need it?
Oh, absolutely. The machine basically what it does is if you open any science book and just look up water, it'll say one of the first in the first paragraph, it'll tell you that water exists on the same amount of water exists on the earth since the beginning of time. That water comes in three forms. It comes in a liquid, it comes in a solid, and it comes in a gas. It's in a solid when it's at the North and South Pole, or when it comes down in snow, or it's on the top of a mountain, or someplace at the bottom of the ocean, there's ice. It's in the liquid form. It's in liquid form in our oceans and our aquifers and our streams. And everywhere else there's the water, it's in gas.
Mm.
It gets to the ice place through the gas. It gets through the ocean through gas. It falls out of the sky in gas. The hotter the planet gets, the more water evaporates. So there's an abundance of water in the atmosphere, and water is actually they consider it a gas that actually helps heat the planet, like a greenhouse gas. Too
Wow.
much moisture in the air heats the planet. So a hot planet has lots of moisture in the air.
Mm. And
And
our
so what
planet
I do
is pretty hot right about now.
is very hot. It's going to be hotter next year, and there's going to be more water in the air next year. And there's going to be more droughts. So basically, what this machine does is it 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 pulls the air, the ambient air that's all around us, completely out of the air, and it pulls the moisture out of the air.
Mm.
And it the house that I live in today, this entire house and my neighbor's house, one machine can supply this whole house and my neighbor's house with drinking water for showering, for
Wow.
gardening, straight out of the air. Not only air in the rooms, but the air outside. And it
Mm.
can do it with solar power.
It sounds like a green dream. It literally sounds like it's
It's a
something
green
that.
reality. It's a
Oh, I like
reality.
that. I like
No,
that.
I've been doing this a long time. I mean, I supplied 15,000 people with drinking water on the island of Vieques in 2018, and I did it on solar power with solar power.
Mm. And you've also, as I mentioned, Flint, Michigan. I believe you also were a part of some of the efforts trying to help folks out in Hawaii as well when they were going through what happened there. And as you noted just a moment ago, the planet is going to get much hotter next year. This year was one of the hottest years on record since humans have been basically recording. Next year is going to get hotter. You said that it's going to get hotter. There's going to be more moisture in the air and more drought on the ground. How are you preparing for the next round of challenges that we're facing? In addition to just climate change, we're seeing geopolitical disputes break out all across the planet right now. There's a lot of tension around a whole host of needs. Water going to be principal among them. Talk to us about how someone who is able to make a green dream turn into a green reality. How do you prepare for what you see coming down the pike, particularly because so many people are going to need this technology?
I prepare by finding the right partners that can build multiples of machines. But I know in the process of doing that, like right now, I'm working with a large company. I can tell you the name; it doesn't bother me anymore. I'm working with. I've been talking with executives at Train Air Conditioning, and what Train would do, Train would build. I would show them how to. I would sign with them so that they would build this machine, and so it could spread all over the world. Overnight, that would make this a global company. But at the same time, big companies like that and someone like me, the chances of me ending up with the fair deal are slim, are very
Mm.
slim, without hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees. And with everything happening the way it is, and here in the United States, one thing that I see a lot of that we can't get around, and I don't talk about it much. I don't even talk about it with my partner. I don't talk about it much with my friends. We have a system that it doesn't really care much about the individual person that's on the ground. And so what I'm going to really try to dedicate this year to is ensuring that I go to as many places as I can because there are people out there who do have the technical know-how to do something, even if it's rudimentary, to make a machine like this. So I'm going to spend a lot of time teaching. I just taught, I gave a lecture at Loyola University. I'll be back at Loyola University. I'll be taking a machine to Loyola University.
Wow.
I'll invite the people from Jackson uh, up here for a seminar. I'm just going to have as many seminars as I can. And the big machine that I took to Puerto Rico, that did that mission in Puerto Rico,
Yes.
I have another one. I have
Wow.
one like that, and I'm going to take that machine because no one's ever donated enough money for me to build one. They've donated money for me to go someplace, do a mission, and come back. But there's never been enough in donations. And part of the reason is one, we people don't have a lot of money to donate. In
Right.
large corporations, they really don't. They don't want you to die, but they don't care if you do.
Mm. Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
want to kill you, but they really don't care whether if you do or not. As long as you're getting paid, they're getting paid.
Right.
It's all about the shareholder and the bottom line and profits. And so what I need to do is just I see the next year as a lecture year and teaching and I'm and building machines for the military because they're the ones who place more orders than anyone else for me.
Wow. And it's unfortunate that there's such humanitarian need right now, right? When I'm thinking about just the desperate need for water that so many people across the planet have, and here is a solution. What you said there is going to stick with me for a minute. They don't want you to die, but they don't really care if you live, and they don't care how you're living if you happen to still be alive. And that, I mean, is one of the challenges I think when it comes to wanting to do good work in a way that is going to meet the needs of the people. And I see that's something that you're wrestling with. A number of organizations, nonprofit and others that have attempted to solve or resolve issues or provide solution often run into a lack of capital being able to really help them get over that hump. And one of the things that I've been thinking about since the last conversation we had was the fact that privatization of water is becoming such a more worrisome issue than it was before. I remember in 2005 reading Octavia Butler's book Parable of the Sower, and in there she talked a lot about the good of the commons, whether it be police services, firefighting services, ambulance services, so on and so forth, being privatized. So your house might be on fire, and the fire department might come, but they're not going to turn on that water and put that fire out unless you could pay them right then and there. And it's a horrible reality that she paints. Beautiful story, but a horrible reality that she paints. But I've been thinking about that in light of the conversation we had before when it comes to the privatization that's happening right now with access to water. What does that concept mean to you when the idea that access to water is going to be held by some of those same people and some of those same corporations who don't care if you live, not worried much if you die, so long as they get paid? What are you predicting, or what do you think is coming down the pike when it comes to global concerns? National, yes, but global concerns about access to water, particularly as we have, I was just in New Orleans, we've got the salination, the salt water from the sea coming up into the levees and injecting itself into the clean water. Give us a sense as to the challenges that are on the horizon that we really need to be thinking differently about water access and water equity, which seems like a phrase out of a dystopian nightmare.
The paradigm has already shifted. You're what you know the old story about the the frog that's in the pot and
Mm,
they turn the stove up on him and he doesn't notice that the temperature has risen to the point where he's being cooked. The frog
right.
is being cooked, and eventually the frog just goes to sleep and is cooked, and he just didn't realize it because it was a slow raise in the temperature.
Mm,
Well, you're already at the place where the water is a commodity. There are several places in Arizona and California where people have to truck water to their homes. Native Americans all across the Southwest and even closer to the Midwest are having to truck water into their communities. Look at a community like Flint in places where they still can't drink the water. They don't use the water for anything, not even to water their grass. So they still have to go get bottled water. Water has already been commoditized because You look at the issues that cause for the commoditization of water. One, climate change. So we have climate change. Your water evaporates, goes into the atmosphere. And contamination. We get it, the Environmental Protection Agency and all the rules that we put in place, the Clean Water Act. Just look it up. It's all been gutted. So now they can contaminate your water as much as they wish.
Mm.
So, and now they just found I I can't remember the name of the chemical they just found. Um, it's not methyl ethyl ketone, but it's another one, and it's in all drinking water. It's everywhere.
Wow.
It's a carcinogen. It's toxic to everyone. So then you have water contamination, you have the drought, and then you have the misuse of water, and so that leaves you with no water. So you're already having many
Wow.
people are already having to purchase water, and many people that live in cities already buy bottled water because they don't trust their tap water for
Right.
good reason.
Right.
So we're there, but it's
Mm.
just been a slow boil. But another thing that people should think about, and you mentioned it earlier, in the current geopolitical situation that we have, and however these players decide to act out, one of the acts that they have in their arsenal of weapons today is the collapse of our grid. And if that's one thing, if you, I would love for everyone out there today to look
Mm.
up the attack on the American grid, how a foreign player or domestic players would use that as a way to hurt the United States. If you shut off the grid in the United States, it's
Mm.
over.
I
It'll take
remember.
six to eight months to turn it back on, and in that time, you would lose a significant portion of the United States.
And when you're talking about the grid, just to be clear, we're talking about the electric power grid. We're talking about the government's ability to control the flow of power, which we required for water purification, which requires for telecommunications, and I remember living in New York City during the blackout. And I will tell you that, listen, sir, I walked from West 4th Street at NYU at the law school. I came out the building. A sister friend happened to see me. I was heading to the bank. She was like, "Oh, girl, no, all the power's out." I was like, "What you mean?" "Well, I'm just going to go to the ATM." She said, "Listen what she said." She said, "All the power's out." I said, "Well, I'm just going to go to the ATM and pull some money out." She said, "Girl, the power is." I was like, "What you mean the power's out?" I know the intersection power is out, but I'm going into the bank. And it dawned on me in that moment, holy crap. There's no power anywhere. There wasn't cell phone power, so we didn't have any cell towers. And we still had, this was back right, it was like, right, was it 2003, 2004? We still technically had pay phones on the street, but who was carrying coins at that point to be able to make a phone call? And the entire system crashed. I remember walking from West 4th Street up to 42nd Street in flip flops and a jean skirt and a tank top because it was the summertime and it was hot. And I was like, well, this is bad on the legs. But I'm walking up and I'm realizing nobody had a clue as to what to do. At a certain point, we just sort of gathered at not Penn Station, at Port Authority, which is right outside of Times Square. And as the sun goes down, I'm looking at the buildings. Everyone around me is looking at the buildings, and we're like, the lights aren't coming on. I've never seen Times Square dark ever in my life. And it was a real come to Black Jesus moment because I had that sister not seen me. She slid me $20 because she was like, "You ain't gonna get no money at the machine." She gave me $20, and that literally was what I had to use. I had to walk back to the law school, sleep in the lobby of the law. But it was shocking to me how ill prepared all of us were for the lack of power, and that was for a day and a half, maybe. And to think about an attack on the electric grid or any of the other systems that control the flow of power in this country, you are absolutely correct. I remember during the pandemic, there were a number of incidents that to this day, I believe, have not been resolved of people literally shooting, almost like target practice, at power stations. I believe in North Carolina. I also believe in California. There were a number of states. What would something like that do to our access to water? It's one thing to think about an attack on a grid on our electricity. What would something like that do to our water access?
Shut it off.
Oh, I had a feeling you were going to say that.
If you lose power, it shuts it off. It's off. No water's pumped to the top of water towers. It gives it pressure. The water tower gives it pressure to come to your house. A lot of places don't use water towers anymore. They just use electric pumps for the pressure in the lines. As soon as the pumps go out, the water goes out. So an attack on the grid, and please, if people don't know about these things, what you need to do is there's a 60 Minutes piece that they did when they tried to shut down the grid in California. You have a West Coast grid, Midwest grid. You have a grid that pretty much operates the East Coast, and then you have those people down there that live in that place called Texas that have their I think it's ERCOT. They have their own grid down there, and
Right.
their grid almost did collapse during that one winter.
That's
I
right.
was there in Texas when that happened, but I was on a military base. In the military base, we did not lose power, and I remember I tried to get people to come to my home, but no one could get to my house because no one could drive because the roads were all frozen and covered in ice.
Wow.
And there were people out there who were actually burning furniture because their power. What they did is they rolled the power around, so people froze to death in Texas.
Wow.
You need to look that up, and that's just recent history.
Right. Right.
So the grid will get shut down. It will. It's not it's not if, it's when. It's when it will. But it, it, that's all I could say. You
Wow.
have to be prepared.
Yeah. And I think what you're reminding me of is that even in this day of the grid functioning right now, and for those of you who think there's some doubt to the validity of the story, remember when Ted Cruz ran to Cancun and people was like, "Why he in Cancun? Texas is freezing." That was during all of this was happening at the same time. So Ted Cruz running down to Cancun and taking the girls because he didn't want to deal with the trauma of being in leadership during the time he was leaving during this winter storm that our guest is talking about right now. But one of the things you said that really stuck out to me, we just bought a house and we buy water. And in fact, we have a fridge in the house, fairly new fridge. And I had to, before I would let the kids use the fridge, I had to get the filter. I wanted to make sure the filter was clean. And we buy water because we don't trust the tap water. I've never had our water tested, but I recently found out that in our neighborhood, there are a number of pipes that have lead tracings with them. So I'm concerned about the water. So I'm already living in a world where part of our monthly budget is water and getting access to water, bringing water into the house. And so having our ability, just thinking about how few of us actually already use tap water and we're already seeing those elevated concerns. That's such a part of my life right now that it didn't even occur to me that that is a signifier of some greater distress coming into our water access system. I'm also thinking about many states in the Midwest that have aquifers that they share. And there are battles over which state is over consuming from that aquifer, and no real legal way for them to figure it out because one can't force the other to do anything. We're already seeing this in ways that I'm realizing are far more stark than I did before this conversation started. This is the nervous kind of laughter, y'all. This ain't laughter because it's funny. It's laughter because I'm scared. This is a problem. And other than hearing about the development of your machine, I don't feel like a whole lot of people, at least in the public space, are working on increasing water access. Are you aware of any national or international efforts that are directly, other than what you're engaged in, that are directly looking at how to expand access to water for like humanity?
No,
Oh,
no. I know of no large programs. I know that up in the Alps right now, what they're doing because the glaciers are melting so fast. And the glaciers, when a glacier melts, it's what forms a river.
mm,
So it snows in the wintertime, the ice forms up, it doesn't all melt. It gets thicker and thicker every year, but climate change is causing them to melt. But those were the rivers. All the major rivers of Asia, the Yangtze, the Yalu, the Mekong, the perfume rivers, all these big rivers that we used to know. Well, they're all shrinking because the headwaters up in the Himalayas are melting fast. So the Chinese are building dams to hold back that water that's melting. So these rivers are going to disappear in our lifetime. In
wow.
your lifetime, in my lifetime, you're going to see these rivers actually cease to exist. And so when they cease to exist, the communities downriver will cease to exist as well.
Mm,
So you're talking about the entire country of Vietnam. Just they're going to have rainwater, but their main rivers that flow through Asia. and through Cambodia, those rivers they're going to dry up. And so that's the only major thing that I see them doing right now is damming up the headwaters. So basically, it's this if the ship was sinking and there were people who had some advantage on the ship, they're using their advantage to get to the best lifeboats possible, and they
Wow.
don't care about the people who are in third class. So the people who are in first class right now are stocking their lifeboats as the ship is sinking. That's the best analogy that I can give it.
Hmm. I feel like the people in third class don't even know that we hit an iceberg. Like we don't even know that up in first class they're stockpiling the lifeboats. We don't even know that there's a problem. I'm thinking a lot about New Orleans. As I mentioned, I was just
Mm-hmm.
there, and the salt water eroding or coming into the levees is top of mind for a lot of people. What are your thoughts on what's happening there? I know you said there's no national or international effort that's really looking at this in any meaningful way. What do you see coming down the pike for the good folks in New Orleans who, quite frankly, have already been through a hell of a lot?
It's over. It's there's you the Mississippi River is they call it there's a lot of names for it. Old Man River, Big Muddy. I mean, the Mississippi River, there's stories written about that river. You couldn't swim from one side of it to the other. It was a large flowing body of fresh water that went down through the Midwest all the way. It's a super highway. There's more commerce that goes up and down the Mississippi. Corn from the Midwest get processed. Oil, gas, uh, durable goods pass up and down that river. Well, there's such a drought up in the Midwest that the river's not flowing. It's not raining up here in
Wow.
Illinois, in Minnesota, in Wisconsin, Iowa. All these places haven't been getting the rain like they used to. So basically, what it is ocean. The ocean is what? The ocean is rising. The ocean is rising because the ice is melting. So the ocean rises, it flows into the Gulf of Mexico. The Gulf of Mexico is rising. The Mississippi River, which is going downhill, and the ocean is coming uphill. So
Wow.
that water now that was in the Gulf of Mexico, and the other thing you need to remember about the water that's in the Gulf of Mexico is super contaminated from refining oil, the corrects that they put in it, the petrochemical plants that live up and down it. For your audience again, please look this up. Look up Cancer Alley.
Yeah.
Cancer Alley. Please. Every term I'm telling you, you can look up.
And audience, y'all should know we done talked about Cancer Alley. We've had guests on talking about Cancer Alley. So this is factual. This is factual information.
So your Cancer Alley now is flowing up the Mississippi River. That toxic water that was in the Gulf of Mexico is now flowing up the Mississippi River. Now look, you think okay, it's going to flow back down the Mississippi River. Oh, no, it's going to flow back down, but it leaves its sediment and everything in the mud,
Mm.
and it's pushing up. So all the people who draw off the Mississippi River for clean water, the Army Corps of Engineers right now is trying to build up a portion of the Mississippi River high enough so that the water from the Gulf of Mexico won't come up past that point and start to flow back. So basically, they're building a dam in the Mississippi River to stop sea level rise.
Wow.
The gig is up. But Mississippi, I mean Louisiana sits. I have a machine right now, and I'm rebuilding that machine. And I've talked to a couple of organizations, and they said, "Well, what do you need?" I said, "Oh, well, I need $100,000 to finish this machine. If I finish this machine, I'll bring it to New Orleans. It's a big machine like the one that went to Flint, the one that went to Puerto Rico, and that's the one I'm going to give lectures on. The first place I would stop if I could raise that, I'd finish that machine off and I'd drop it right down there. And then once they saw it, I'm sure they'd want to build more."
Right. Whew, this is a sobering conversation. The reality is we have to be thinking about climate change beyond just how hot is it. All right, we got to be thinking about climate change beyond just the Green New Deal. This feels like desperate times in a way. And when you described what's happening in China and how throughout Asia they're building dams, and then you described pretty much the same damn thing on the Mississippi River, it feels as though we're all sort of fiddling while Rome is burning, and I don't think most of us even realize it. Now, I'm glad you mentioned the funding aspect of this because, quite frankly, this is a massive effort. And you, sir, are a 501c3 organization, I do believe. Is that correct? The Moses West Foundation. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so this is an organization that is able to accept tax deductible donations. And for those of you who are listening to the audience, if your mouth is, your jaw sort of hit the floor and you are as stunned as I am at just the stark reality that he's describing here, I want you to visit MosesWestFoundation.org. Moses, that's Mose, just like the Bible, y'all. Come on. MosesWestFoundation, MosesWestFoundation.org. There's donation buttons there. You can donate even with crypto if you want to donate with crypto. We're bringing some folks on to talk about digital money over the next couple of weeks. So this is an opportunity for us to be a part of the solution that we desperately need. And I am increasingly more concerned about our ability to recognize just how serious this issue is. Sir, I'm grateful for you joining us today and sharing with us the work that you've engaged in and the persistent need, the absolute persistent need that there is right now. I am very concerned, but I feel like if we can get funds, if we can fundraise, if we can put you in a position where these machines can be replicated in a way that doesn't put you at a disadvantage as you in your efforts to help other people, I think we will all be a lot better off. How would you suggest that people follow you, connect with you if they want to support? We've given out the website. Are you on social media, any other space that they should look to try to connect with you to further add their voices to yours?
I've been trying to avoid social media, but I do have an Instagram presence there. So most of what I do, I'll put up on Instagram. And right now, this part of the wintertime is when everything starts to slow down for
Mm,
most people. You can't get anything done, but this is usually when I do my best work.
right.
So, say if people wanted to donate and help get this machine up and running, well, it's up and running, but to get it to a place where I can move it down and start to show it going towards Louisiana and coming back up where people need it. This is the time that I would do that work, and this is the time where the donations would definitely come in handy and work towards that. But have something I want to add about this climate change. What's happening in New Orleans? When New Orleans got hit by Hurricane Katrina,
Mm,
it got hit by Hurricane Katrina, it's right there on the Gulf of Mexico. It's right in a place. Yeah, you've already lost a lot of wetlands. So
mm,
now with climate change, you had high heat this year. You have the Mississippi River flowing backwards, and if you get hit by a hurricane, there's I'm here to tell you there's nothing that you're going to be able to do for the millions of people that live in that area.
wow.
There needs to be there needs to be an emergency plan put into effect for every coastal city.
Mm,
I it it boggles my mind why we're not spending billions of dollars to help fortify our
yeah.
fortify and protect and support our citizens that live in these coastal cities. I think you mentioned Cancun, where Ted Cruz ran to.
Yeah.
It was it Cancun that just got wiped out by a hurricane, and I don't even think people know about it.
Wow. Wow.
If someone could please tell me that, because what I've done is I've just kind of shut down all information from the outside because there's just too much of it that's just absolutely negative.
This is a
So I
Hurricane Otis that killed 27 people in Mexico. Yeah, and that was
and it,
just
and it,
5 days ago. Wow.
and it
Or
hit Can
five
and
days ago
it
as
hit
of this recording. Yeah.
it hit Cancun, correct?
Let's see. Acapulco. I'm reading.
Acapulco,
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. This is. And you're right. This isn't
Acapulco's
even something that we've discussed much on this show.
no 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 one's talking about it, and it destroyed the city. the city doesn't exist in the same form that it did before.
My
And there's
God.
a lot of people that moved from here to go down there because it was such a wonderful place to live. That place
Mm.
doesn't exist.
Oh, and
I've
I'm making a correction. The death toll actually from Hurricane Otis has risen to 45. It's at the outset there were 27 people initially, but that death toll has now risen to 45. My God.
they're those tolls that they give you. They're held low. You
Yeah.
just it's like during Hurricane Maria when I was in Puerto Rico, they were talking about the death toll, and then there were buildings, and you the buildings from you look through the door of the building, and all you could see was feet stacked to the roof because they feet had people laying in the building like cordwood. And it's like, did anybody count that building? And they said they just passed by it and they give it a number like 5 or 10. And there's definitely 50 people in there, and it's just a horrendous smell everywhere. So
Hmm.
I think they undercount sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, sir, I'm grateful for you sounding the alarm and letting us know what is happening, keeping us in the know. And again, folks, MosesWestFoundation.org. You can follow him at Moses West Foundation on Instagram. I've been following you for a minute. I really appreciate the work there. And listen, if y'all, it's year end. This is fundraising season for a lot of organizations and donation season for a lot of people in position to do so. So I'm going to be adding you to my personal list of groups that I help support at the end of the year because we have to figure out how to make this work before it's frankly too late. Moses West, it is always a pleasure to have you on these airwaves. So very
Thank
grateful for
you.
the work that you're doing. Thank you. Thank you.
I just got to let you know though,
Yes.
please, everybody, just because there's a lot of negative information out there, there's people like myself and others. We're working and we have solutions to these problems.
Mm,
So you got a dark picture of what's going on, but you know, here where I live, there I have the capability to make 1,250 gallons of water behind my house every day.
I love it. Yeah.
So everybody
Well,
needs to be here.
that's right. That's right. The world may be in trouble, but we also have solutions. I appreciate that reminder. Thank
Absolutely.
you again. Thank you again.